I've been playing video games since I was 7 years old, and I'm gonna have a whole video about that sometime soon. But I never really understood what factors contributed to a good video game until I was 10, prior to my introduction to Skyrim. I was content playing Avatar: The Last Airbender on the Wii. I mean, when I was 10, I thought that game was on par with Baldur's Gate 3 and Elden Ring. I might as well have been working at IGN. However, recently I began thinking about this subject again while I've been watching my girlfriend play through Red Dead Redemption 2, and I'm constantly surprised by how much detail is in that game. And although I have well over 1,000 hours in Red Dead Story and Online, I'm seeing so much stuff in her playthrough that I've never seen before. So I wanted to make a video all about what contributes to a good video game. I'll start with this. What a good video game is completely subjective. What you think is a masterpiece, I might think is hot garbage, and vice versa. I've gotten so many comments of people saying Red Dead's gameplay is garbage and boring, and although I disagree, I can't understand where that comes from, just having the wrong opinion. So in this video, I'll really try to make my message as digestible as possible. First off, no genre, in my opinion, is better than another. Would you say that GTA 5 is a better game than Doki Doki Literature Club? Probably. Although I enjoy GTA much more than Doki Doki Literature Club, they both execute their intended purposes excellently and makes them both 10 out of 10 games. It's not really fair to compare them or even say Doki Doki is boring because it's all reading and no action. I mean, you'd be right, the entire game is reading, but that's because it's marketed as a visual novel. But let's take the Saints Row reboot. Saints Row 2022 was also an open world action adventure game just like GTA 5. The difference between the two was that the missions in Saints Row were repetitive, poorly written, and failed to deliver what most expected when paying for it. And also, Saints Row the reboot costs more than GTA 5. Let's compare humorous moments from both games.
First you take a hostage against my advice, and then you start some kind of crazy high school romance with her? Are you nuts? She's a 60-year-old housewife.
Now, she's 57. And she thinks that I'm mature.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. 30 years of marriage to the world's angriest mob boss would make anyone insane.
Hey, we had a big win today. We should do something irresponsible to celebrate.
What do you have in mind?
Oh, I don't know. The money fight!
The first scene, while being over the top and immature, still shows tension between the two characters, and Rockstar pushes that narrative throughout the story. Michael and Trevor hate each other, but are still best friends, and I think that this scene shows that excellently. The second scene in the Saints Row reboot, while being over the top and immature, just kind of shows the characters being over the top and immature. I watched Migration recently, and that scene was like something that I'd see out of that movie, which is not a compliment. Now, it's true that Saints Row has been known to take itself less seriously than Grand Theft Auto, but Saints Row 2 still delivered a parody of GTA while continuing to keep the player engaged. It's frequently praised as an amazing game, and I think part of that is that it didn't try to be a millennial power fantasy. Oh god. I mean, seriously, what were the developers thinking with this? I'm sure we've all heard the Shigeru Miyamoto quote, "A delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is always bad." And although games like Cyberpunk and No Man's Sky eventually reached a playable state and became beloved by many players, they're still true to those words. A rushed game is always bad. Cyberpunk will never escape its past, no matter how good it gets. It will always be known as the overhyped, undercooked pizza pocket that made its way into the mainstream. When people think Cyberpunk, I'd say well over 50 gamers still think moist critical car clip.
Is this game worth it? Does that answer your question?
Keanu Reeves breathtaking and broken. I played through Cyberpunk twice and love my experience, but even I think those three things when people say Cyberpunk. I genuinely do not understand why game companies announce a game when it's early in development. I try to give an answer to everything on this channel, but that is one thing that I am clueless on. If you know anything about game development, and especially the situation with Cyberpunk in its earlier years, I'd love for you to leave a comment and maybe explain why game developers announce games super early into development. I don't get it. If you just don't announce the game until later, the community can't even hate on you for taking too long on the project because they won't even know it exists. Rockstar, at least their in-house projects, always announce their games because they are in a playable state. GTA 6 is probably almost done right now. I'd imagine the story and side missions are complete. They're probably just patching bugs, polishing the rough edges, and adding more random encounters. Just because a game is finished, though, doesn't mean it's good. Sometimes a game developer bites off way more than they can chew, and although the game comes out finished, it just doesn't work. Enter Starfield. Starfield is a finished game. It obviously has some bugs and glitches, but that's kind of expected for a Bethesda RPG. The problem with Starfield is that Bethesda bit off way more than they could chew. With a development team of around 450 people, they wanted to make an RPG that had 1,000 planets, all in their own galaxy, and then took on the daunting task of trying to fill that space. I love Rockstar, and I genuinely believe Rockstar can pull off anything. However, I wouldn't even put them on the task of making a space adventure on that scale because it's just way too big. Starfield should have had 1 or 4 universes and 25 planets, and maybe then they could have actually put in that exploration factor that Bethesda is known for. Because Starfield is so big, Bethesda has to separate everything with a loading screen, which doesn't make space feel big, it makes space feel like an illusion. Bethesda made Starfield as good as they possibly could have. I don't believe they slacked, and I love the video game. However, I think that to blow people away and make a video game that sets a new standard, you have to know your limits within the studio and aim to reach that limit instead of finding your limit and trying to outdo that. Because then you get a game that's impossible to make, and it comes out with the appearance of being unfinished even though everybody tried their best to make it amazing. I can just imagine the board meeting where they pitched Starfield. Todd, being the big dreamer, says, "Space. 1,000 planets. More quests than ever before." Ego really is the enemy of Starfield, because I think with Skyrim, Bethesda blew people away with how full it was of content, and to this day, millions of people still play it. And more than anything, they probably just want to outdo Skyrim. However, trying to lift 400 pounds when you can only lift 100 won't make you stronger. You'll just crumble under the weight. I hope that for the Elder Scrolls 6, Bethesda finds the line between ambitious and impossible. Because as a massive Bethesda fan, it makes me sad to see how Starfield turned out. Although I loved the game, I didn't enjoy it nearly as much as Skyrim, Oblivion, Morrowind, or Fallout 4. Going back to Cyberpunk, I don't think that Cyberpunk was an impossible project, and as we can see today, it wasn't. It was just announced way too early. I believe a good game is one that can deliver an experience accurate to how the creator imagined it, whether it's a visual novel, a platformer, or a Wild West action adventure. Video games deserve love across all genres, as long as passion has been put into it, and not a CEO going, "Damn, players loved that Rust map, let's do it again instead of attempting to create something that a new generation will have fond memories of." I fucking hate Activision. What do you guys think the main thing is that makes a game good? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll respond as soon as I can. As always, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to watch this video, and make sure to have a good one.
Todd Howard, hyping his games at E3. Todd Howard, they always come out empty, and I'll buy them and play them religiously, cause he's a god. Yeah, he's Todd. Hey, Skyrim's pretty lit, and hey, Fallout 76 was kinda, and that ain't okay, to release a game that's unfinished and lame. Oh, Todd Howard.
Todd Howard, please, please, please let me have the beta for Elder Scrolls 6. I promise I will review it so well, bro. Please. Hit me up. My number, my email, anything, bro. Please. I bought all the versions of Skyrim. I promise.